Pragmatism is a philosophical tradition that originated in the United States around 1870. It started back up again in the 1970s after the original decline in the beginning of the 20th century. Simply put, pragmatism is a belief centered around linking practice to theory, with a specific focus on life experience. Knowledge is arrived at by scientific inquiry, testing, questioning, and retesting, and is never conclusive. The term intelligent practice is used a lot in pragmatism. It basically means the process of taking theory out of practice, then applying that theory back into practice. Pragmatism holds that there are no absolutes. Truth results from the application of scientific thinking to experience. This philosophy was made to combine the two classical ways of thinking. These ways being claims to science versus religion and morality. Basically, facts versus feelings.
The most important of the classical pragmatists were Charles Sanders Peirce, William James, and John Dewey. However, Auguste Comte and Charles Darwin had a profound impact on the pragmatist philosophy as well. James, a well-respected professor at Harvard University, was not credited for founding pragmatism, but Peirce gave him equal credit in its beginning stages. He was a psychologist and a philosopher. He believed there are no absolutes and no universals. He was the first educator to offer a psychology course in the United States, even though he suffered from psychological symptoms himself, and also physical ailments. James believed that experience should be more highly regarded than abstractions and universals.
James quoted this: "I originally studied medicine in order to be a physiologist, but I drifted into the psychology and philosophy from a sort of fatality. I never had any philosophic instruction, the first lecture on psychology I ever heard being the first I ever gave." Peirce, on the other hand, was a mathematician and logician. His main thought was that ideas are merely hypotheses until tested by experience. Peirce was not as highly regarded as James. He was ousted from his professorship at Johns Hopkins University and did not really ever do anything more academically. Most of his contemporaries did not appreciate or support his philosophical views, which made it hard for James to promote it. This may have been one of the main reasons that pragmatism did not catch on super quickly.
John Dewey, who was a contemporary of James, was the most influential philosopher on American pragmatism. Dewey got connected through Peirce. He had been a graduate student at Johns Hopkins while Peirce was there. He was a highly regarded philosophy professor. He taught at the University of Chicago before moving on to Columbia University. His thoughts were that experience, thought, and consequence are interrelated. His progressive educational theories reflected his philosophy of pragmatism. Continuing after James and Dewey's contributions, Peirce refined this philosophy because of his own uncertainties, renaming it pragmatism. This is more of what we know of the philosophy today.
Bringing this philosophy to the school building models the progressive democratic society we live in. Pragmatists believe that schools should include moral, economic, educational, and political goals. Instruction is mainly done by doing. L. Dean Webb, the author of The History of American Education, says it well. He says, "Problem solving, experimentation, hands-on activities, collaborative learning, and methods that incorporate deductive thinking are all at the heart of the pragmatist views of education." This philosophy changed the view of education in terms of the teacher not being the all-knowing, fact-spitting instructor, but rather is the project or experiment director. They encourage critical thinking as well as model their own thought processes for their students.
We think this would fit into the modern classroom very well. Ideally, to implement this philosophy, one would want appropriate lab stations, a lot of group work, lessons that connect inside the classroom with real-life experiences, and plenty of hands-on activities. If resources permit, taking our students on field trips where they can connect the ideas we have been learning in the classroom to life outside of it. simply making the classroom a place where students' input is greatly valued and implemented into the overall environment. This will help students in their ability to collaboratively work through problems and come to whole group decisions.